Hello everyone, this is the final bit of creating this isometric image of the overrun interior or abandoned interior. So in this session, most of the image was actually done, so I was sort of fighting or struggling to find things to do. So I started thinking about and talking about reducing the number of colors because they do make the image a lot noisier and they don't really add much to the image. The first bit that I'm working on is the leaves, and the reason I'm doing that is because the way that I drew the leaves before, they had black outlines around almost every leaf, and that was because I drew the leaves separate from each other, so there was room for outlines. So what I did was I changed those inner outlines from black to a lighter green, or a dark green, but still lighter than some of the leaves on the background there. After that, I started doing some fine-tuning, just carving details here and there, and just making sure that I could reduce any amount of colors that I thought were excessive. There's also the matter of the tree not really fitting on the bottom boards on the ground. So eventually I go back and add a darker tone there for really carving in detail, or basically making the tree really poke from the ground. Also think about the mushrooms, adding tiny details. And eventually I start by adding a lot of grass on that bit there specifically, just to create the illusion that the tree is kind of generating vegetation around it. I also add some outlines here for the decorations on the walls, and the reason I'm doing this is because I wanted this scene to look like something out of an advanced, a Game Boy Advanced RPG kind of game. And I remember looking at a lot of these games back when the Game Boy Advance came out. And they had this idea of outlining most of the interactive things, and even those that weren't interactive would have an outline to define them as separate objects. So because the moose heads are sort of projected out of the wall, I think that the outline really added to the sort of stylized and cartoon feel of the whole scene. So here's where I begin to add the grass. I'm trying to figure out if I can use the green that's already on the scene or if I need to make a new one. I decided I want to make a new one because it really does kind of eat away at your color palette. You start adding a lot of colors, and next thing you know, you've got 100 and something colors, which is, I think, beyond what I have. I think at this point I had like 130 colors, which really isn't important in this stage. And even the Game Boy Advance would support these colors no problem. But again, just out of keeping track of what you're doing, it's wise to not let yourself use too many colors. I'm also clearing out some of the books here on the shelves just to make it untidy, and also to break the similarities from the other bookshelves on the other side. But it also creates the opportunity for me to create some sort of vegetation that actually crawls up in the bookshelf. So a lot of this is being done again on stream, and I'm kind of again struggling to find things to do that will improve the scene that aren't already there. So the big improvement was the lighting, of course, in the previous session, but adding the details here to sort of solidify the scene's details is an issue of not overdoing it. Figuring out if I'm going to make use of my colors on the scene, or if I'm just adding detail for the sake of adding detail, which isn't really the reason why you should do it. In this case, I think that some of the bits of the image are bare, that they could be improved, but also that there's a bit more of storytelling to be added if I add elements to the scene. And this is what that overrun effect of the planks right on the bottom there, and also adding the grass, that's what it does. It helps tell a story. Even if the story isn't well defined, it allows the viewer to kind of imagine the story in his own mind. So as I'm adding the grass here, I feel like it would be interesting to add other elements, like potentially a root, some more vegetation on the bottom. It just feels like the green is being added there. It kind of pulls me down towards that scene, which I kind of like. So this is kind of like a climbing, like an ivy root, and it's going to go all the way up to the top of the bookshelf, where I create some sort of moss shape, which to be honest, I'm not really 100% happy with, but I think it would fit. I think it kind of fit the theme or at least it fit the shading that I was doing. But as I was moving, and you can see me adding those really bright greens there because those elements are in the spotlight, therefore they should be a lot brighter. But it also creates this warm effect. As I'm adding the root there, just coming out through the planks, I also have to keep in mind that I should add a cast shadow on the bottom because that's the defining factor of having that really bright light coming down on the scene. It has to generate shadows. The other thing that I do is I also add animation to the scene. I take my timeline, I bring it up, and I create 4 frames, which I'm going to use to create very short looping animations. Now in this case I'm going to move the fire, and at every frame I'm kind of moving the pattern of the fire up, keeping track that at the 4th frame I should start seeing a transition back to the 1st frame. I also animate the highlights on the floor and on the side of the fireplace to convey that the lighting itself changes with the intensity of the flames. I do the same on at the table's edge as well. Here I'm moving little dust specks on the light pillar, so to speak. And because it's only 4 frames, it really doesn't allow for a lot of variety, but in the end it turned out fairly good. 4 frames is a really short animation, but I didn't think I would be able to have the time to do a bit more. Also fixed some of the stuff here with the chair, kind of calibrated better. Yeah, this is the final result. It's one of my favorite images so far. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you learned something from it. Take care, and I'll see you next time.